Thank you so much. That's the sweetest introduction I've had in a long, long time. So nice to see you guys. I appreciate you for coming in. For those of you who are streaming from afar, thank you so much for taking your time, your valuable time, and sharing it with us. Our first reader tonight is, and I'm not going to wait around too long. I want everybody to have more chance to read their poetry. Our first reader is Tina Barr, whose poetry I've admired for a very long time. There's not a writer exactly like Tina. One of her books is Green Target, which won the Barrow Street Prize. She's also won a Brockman-Campbell Award. Her previous books include The Gathering Eye, which won the Tupelo Press Editors Award, and Kaleidoscope. She received fellowships from the NEA, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the Pennsylvania Council for the Arts. Her latest book, which is published by Jacar Press here in North Carolina, is called Pink Moon. Just so happened, we just had a full pink moon just recently. So that's about as timely as it gets. Please give a warm Asheville welcome to Tina Barr.
Okay. My editor said that it took quite a bit of doing to get that pink moon up in the sky for me. So I'm going to read 4 poems, about 15 minutes. And we got to get the mic. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Because my husband's a jazz composer, so he's always like, no more than an inch away from the mic, honey. Okay. So the first, well, couple things. One, I want to thank, I'm not quite happy with this. Maybe it's that angle. I don't think I can. Maybe just, yeah, that's great. Okay, great. That was really helpful, actually, I have to say. Okay, so a couple things. One, I want to thank Keith Flynn and Luke Hankins so much for publishing me in the Asheville Poetry Review. And I want to thank the bookstore, and it's nice to see people like Sebastian over there. And I you know, no matter how many times you read, you never, it's never the same. It's always really different. You're like, who's that? And who's that? Anyway, so this in Pink Moon, actually, I've had 5 poems in this book originally published in the Asheville Poetry Review. So I'm going to read from this book, but they were originally published by Keith and Luke. So the first poem is called Yellow Emperor, which also refers to a certain kind of daffodil. I have something called chronic fatigue syndrome, which is sort of like long haul COVID. I used to be real secretive about it, but now I'm, you know, telling everybody because there's a context, which is long haul COVID now. So I was visiting a healer in the poem, and Saqqara in Egypt is, there's a step pyramid there, and there are also a lot of burials of sacred animals, like bulls and cats. And my husband and I live in a cabin on the side of a mountain in Black Mountain. And so the poem begins with this healer, and we move toward a water line break. Things are always happening in a cabin, you know, power lines fall, water lines break. Okay. Yellow Emperor. Layla, healer, sees tears shaped like many eyes, fountain out of me. In Cairo, I was never more myself. At Karnak, under huge columns, high as poplars that blacken against coming dark, heard the winds thrash, trapped inside branches. The hole the plumber dug with his backhoe, deep, wide enough for a grave into which I would push those who bit me, left venom, ate something out of me, wish it back at them, a wind of dark. At the bottom of tulips, inside red cups, not wine stains, but yellow and blue leak up the petals, make a star. Stamens, tiny daggers. Lilac snowflakes of flocks press to the cut bank's ochre sand. Tufted, ruched faces of late daffodils, orange, yellow as the sands at Sahara, where I buried the white, broken shell of my cremated cats. Layla says, too much bad sifts in. My arms weave to open my aura. The water lines leaked for 3 weeks, like the chakra that leaks from my spine. I press it back, press orbital notches over my eyes. Our attorney says insurance must pay. We've an easement over the long roll of dirt and gravel, under which runs white PVC pipe. A dowser comes Monday. Rick, the plumber, says the cost of labor is $1,000 a day. I don't tell this to my husband before he goes on stage, the way he didn't tell me his kidney drained in a hospital bed on tour in Marburg. In Mainz, my mother never cried when they cut away a piece of my father's brain. My mother, the oyster of her, in her next life, she can bloom like a tulip, red, defiant, upright. She had the will of the trees. Water has the last word. All elements do. Trees, a multitude of gateways. Orion, knife at his belt, watches above poplars. We are safest in the black awe. Okay. And this next poem, I know Keith liked it. It's 14 lines, and it's really about a hole in the ground. It's called Energies. I climbed the mountain to kill the tree of heaven. Its roots tunneled like moles, and found a den, I thought, for fox, skunk. Turkeys' calls, gurgle, gobble, scattered around me, wide enough for something much bigger than snake. A dark space opened to darker. I stooped, then ground bees, tiny, yellow striped, sweat bees spun out on mission, bigger than a head, a hole so deep I couldn't see its back. This dark came out of the telephone, voices, once my friends, bullied. The garble of a website manager berated, a cackle of sound I could hardly hear. The doctor told me to get the vaccine. My immune system is a broken hive. Lies issue from a vast dark. Each sting blisters. Are you hearing me okay with this mic?
It's
Okay.
better when you're right above it.
Oh, great. Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, I won't tell you the story of my worst mic experience. We'll pass on that.
You do that Malaprops after dark.
Yeah, it was way further east in North Carolina. This poem is called Okay. These two poems, I'm so happy to read them in the fabulous issue. This really is an amazing issue. They're both about sharks. I go through these, like, I get fascinated with things, and I've looked at all these videos about I was prey, you know, like people who get grabbed by crocodiles, or the shark takes off their forearm, or, you know, and it makes your own life seem really easy. So the poem is called Ampullae of Lorenzini, which are sensing organs along a shark's snout. There's a guy named Rick who, in the poem, a character who's wearing a black wetsuit, and he's floating inside. It's okay. I once had a bird fly into a poetry reading, so that's no problem.
I can edit it out, so you'll.
Oh, no, I don't care. I prefer Bach, but you know, I can. Okay, so he's floating, Rick, in a plexiglass box in the ocean. Ampullae of Lorenzini, they lower a plexiglass box like a coffin bottom with holes in its sides, so it fills almost to the top with water. Rick is pressed into it, floats arms out, legs out, like a black spider looking through its clear pane beneath. Gray torpedoes glide through the tumble of plankton, flickers of fish. Before a great white strikes, it slides by, feels along its lateral lines, snout to tail. It senses pulse, splash through pocked holes along its snout. Inside its head, tiny ducts of jelly, Greek ampullae, held oils, wine. After an anointment, were buried with the dead. Cellars in Cairo, huge brass pitchers slung behind shoulders, charge for pomegranate juice from a tin cup. Gray links bump the sides of the plexiglass, tilt Rick inside. The underwater camera shows a great white shoot up from beneath, crack through his open snout inches from Rick's face. Teeth distend from its jaw like a pair of false choppers, a scissoring, shreds of fish or flesh hang from its chandeliers of white triangles. Rick clutches the overturned box, crawls on, dips his face in the dive mask, curl of snorkel into water. He swims hard for the boat, pulled by his wetsuit into safety, goes home to Jersey, the English Channel, wakes nights inside the shattering box. But back again off New Zealand, chums blood like juice. He's lowered through red water in a bell-shaped cage of bars to watch the zoo. It's fine. To watch the zoo of great whites nose by. But soon after, blood flowers in his brain like a pressed seed. A vessel bursts, a stroke. After rubbing their snouts, petting them like dogs. Thanks, you know, I'm always shocked when people clap, but anyway. Okay, last poem. This one is called Deep, and it begins in our cabin in Black Mountain. And that's, I don't have to tell you anything else, except that it's another short poem. Outside, the call is a caw, deep in a throat, a gurgle, curled round the sound. It's no barn owl, but a bobcat, Beyond the shed in woods close in, a raking scream, like fate knocking in Beethoven's Fifth, a sound like no other. The chill of my sister's necrotizing heart, her words blistered, dry as the scar on my back, years old. Crocodiles, once they have you by the arm or leg, pulled to the bottom, sunk there, take you on a death roll, over and over. The air bubbled up, your flesh ragged. Before dinosaurs, sharks the size of a bus, double-fanged teeth, piles of teeth like shells on a beach in Fisher Branch, Virginia. A megalodon's tooth is 7 inches wide and high, the size of a big man's hand. Its jaw the size of an old Volkswagen. Its doorway of teeth could crush 6 men at once. These days, our sharks shed teeth every 2 weeks, press forward, so ones in the front lodge in surfboards, skin. But whale sharks, the huge polka-dotted mammoths, float open-mouthed. For plankton, they sieve. One could pet them. They give birth to 300 live babies. Laid out these bundles in a Japanese fishery. We kill sharks for soup. Netted, cut off the fins. Wounded, thrown back alive. Angel sharks are shaped fans like a monk's shawl. Tiny lengths like string confetti trail either side of its mouth, attract fish. Sharks are immune to cancer. You know we'll harvest their cells.
Barr. Our next poet is, we've been publishing the Asheville Poetry Review for about, this is our 30th year. And so our 30th anniversary issue is gonna occur in the winter. And for 15 years, we have also done the William Matthews Poetry Prize, whereby we award for the best poem that is contributed, we award $1,000, publication in the review, and an opportunity to come and read for you fine folks here in Asheville. I would have to guess, and I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Kate is our youngest winner of the Matthews Prize in the 15 years that we've been doing it. And I was very impressed with her poetry. Diane Seuss was our judge this year, and she chose Kate's poem as the winner. I'm very pleased that she's here. She says simply that she's a poet from Tennessee, right? And her work can be found in the Iowa Review, the Ekphrastic Review, the Quarterly West, and other places. She's still attending the University of Alabama's MFA program, and she's the editor of one of the finest literary journals that is edited by students that I know of, which is the Black Warrior Review. I want you to please give a warm welcome for Kate DeLay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Malaprop Books for having me, and thank you so much, Asheville Poetry Review, for publishing the poem. Thank you to Tina and Keith. It's been so wonderful to hear your work, Tina. So my current project of poems, I am a third year in Alabama's MFA program. So I'm about to enter my fourth year where I write my thesis. So I'm in this phase of compiling a large group of poems. And hopefully that will one day become a book. But something that has kind of been like kind of an impulse for this collection of poems has been the birth of a calf. I grew up in Tennessee, which is actually one of the reasons why I'm so glad to be in the mountains right now. I currently live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, so it's a little bit hotter, a little bit flatter down there. So thank you for having me. But yes, so I grew up in East Tennessee, and so many of these poems take place kind of in the mind space of my grandmother's farm, where when I was growing up, cattle were being raised. So yes, and I kind of see like the birth of the calf in my poems as kind of a meditation on forgiveness and care and mothering and connection to the earth. So those are some of the things that we're kind of feeling through these poems. Okay, so I'm going to start with the poem that is the William Matthews Poetry Prize winner. It was such an honor to be selected as the winner of this prize, and I was especially honored that Diane Seuss selected it. She is one of my favorite poets. So anyways, thank you for giving this poem home. Repentance. When my mother asked me to forgive her, I ran into the field and the tall, uneaten grasses bent around my knees. Once there, I pulled a calf out by the hooves. This is what my mother's father practiced, raising beef cattle. When an unborn calf turned her face from the world, he reached in and birthed her, saving the mother. Salvation in green, green. Over yonder, a bull closer than a father, farther than a field. Oh, bless this home and all who enter. To bear into the world is a forgiveness, but not for the born. When I pulled the calf, I looked into her newborn eyes and saw a pond without a mud floor. The pond held the yellow sky to the field, pulling it through inside the chest of the world. Double shadow, day vision. My mother gave my life to remedy her life. When she told me so, yellow tinge feathered the grass. I gave my life to forgive myself. I ate bales of hay. I was nearly morning sick. A calf with her heart toward her mother's thumping heart, a woman inside a woman, a girl inside a girl. So my next poem is called Wreck. The price of living is remembering. For the price of dying, fattened cows load into truck beds, their bodies forgotten of my childhood names. Years thinned until I could no longer see where my body met its desire. I sold to America my heart for pennies. Don't yet leave me, I said to my heart. It shined like a penny, worth more copper than a penny. So calves have been a theme within this collection of poems, and it turns out that many other animals have been surfacing. So this next one is roadkill. Roadkill. Driving the interstate, I passed two dogs, their teeth mute against my engine, and the dogs hunched together over something, their shiny coats like ink blots smeared against my future sentence. As I pass, they don't look up, but continue tearing at a carcass of unrecognizable flesh, limb from limb into mouthfuls of blood. My eyes flick between the windshield and the dogs. The memory of insects smears the glass. Like the flies that keep dying in my Coke cans, I want to believe in accidents. Phantom wings beating behind my teeth, an unrecognizable lump on the tongue. Wisteria watched from above, lilting in the breeze. Behind the dogs, kudzu grows along the interstate, strangling the sun from native plants. It was preached the South would live again because of kudzu, so we planted it everywhere. Vine that ate the South. A cloak of verdant flat leaves draped beautifully in the sun. I want to believe the horror of the world is an accident, but the dogs wore collars. They were someone's. I was once someone. Across the yard, Wisteria slouched into a year-long sleep. And where the fence broke, I ran to the street and watched the cars zip by like flies chasing through the air. Each minute stood alone. I towed the white line roar of decibels deadening me. I wandered until I found something beautiful and ate from it. It tasted sickly sweet, my very own freedom. I too eat what isn't mine, like a true American. Many watched as they passed, too busy to stop and walk me home. From the world I take what I am freely given, so I just grew disgusted at what my mouth could do. Disgust, too, is a kind of recognition. I will not know for some time what I had been feeding on. No more dead animals. All right, this next one is called Brem. There was no one left to hold my hand. This is how I came upon the calf. Her eyes were dark, so dark I could make out my outline inside them, the field stretching up and away behind me. There was no end to the weeds. Under the low, deep green heat, my throat grew a stalk of spiderwort. I held it under my tongue like a truth. Please, I said to the calf, it's getting dark, and the calf went on looking through me. My outline grew fuzzy under her bristle of eyelashes. She blinked slowly as I pled with her. Her tail flicked left and right. I could see her heart outside her heart. The weeds were trying to split out of me, make a mess of my teeth. When the last light fell away from us, the field of weeds swam indigo, and in the dark, one of us asked, is there nothing to remember, or do I remember nothing? And one of us replied, is it enough to tell a true story? So we fell into the blue night. So I could no longer see the end of myself, only us, nose to nose, gentle creature of our breath against our cheek. So we grew a tongue of weeds. Indigo bled into the gapless night. We shared a shadow. Anything could be true. We promised we were living, we were dying. I got a couple more poems. Okay, so I'm gonna read an Abecedarian poem, actually. I got really invested in this. There's a collection of poems that functions on this N+7. So you take the noun in your poems and then you go 7 nouns down in the dictionary and you replace it. So I got really interested in playing these word games with myself. And so this is in alphabetical order, and it is also a cento, which is like taking pieces from other poems and putting them together. Break. Under the acres and a dew, under the anger an angle, under the blood a bloom, under the breach a breadth, under the cows a coward, under the debt a decade, under the face a failing, under the hunger a husband, under the leak a leaning, under the mother a motor, under the mother a muddle, a muse, a music, under the oracle an orchard, under the penny a people, under the pond a pontificate, under the rain a rampage, under the reflection a refrain, under the sight a silence, under the sky a slander, under the slaughter a sleep, under the tenor a tension, under the vultures awake, under the woman a womb, under the womb a worry, under the worry a worship, under the worship a wound. So much. All right. So this one is a contrapuntal poem, but I'm actually only going to read it one way. So contrapuntal poems, you have like 2 columns, and it can be read separately as 2 poems, and then you can read it all together. So we're in Photoshop, we're moving things around. But I'm really interested in, there's particularly this movie called Eternal Daughter by Joanne Hogg that I'm a huge fan of. And Tilda Swinton in this movie plays both her daughter and her mother. So it's this entire, it feels very meta in a lot of ways, but it's kind of an exploration of this really interesting relationship. So I've been thinking about that idea of mirroring a lot. So I will read this poem all together. Over Man-Made Pond. Your mother lived like you once, a woman before a mother. She hollowed until her face became a pond, like the earth breathing in a strange sigh. Fingernails of eclipsed crescent moons, hand pluck a scent you almost remember, the sound an aeolian tone. Even her skin smells like your skin. You press nose in and breathe all the things you know and don't know about her, sealed in the pond floor with bentonite clay. Under the surface, algae years in bloom and watertight walls Daddy made flicker beneath still water. The sky blinds your weaker eyes and catches in your humus-caked hair. You want to live in cattails, singing soprano as wide as heaven, floating like only a pond can, drowning where you've come from, like an echo against the sky. You once called the pond a grave. A mother can be buried without ever dying, dirt smothered, rain drowned. You circle the hollows in your eye sockets, a place to drink the sky from the pond of your face. When she warns you to stop digging, your mother sees her own reflection through your eyelashes. Where do you begin? Where she ends, she does. I have two more poems. Wait. Out of order. Okay, so I have two more poems. And this one is called For AC. It's after Alabama's anti-queer legislation. So in the past few years, there has been a lot of legislation put forth against minors receiving gender-affirming care, don't say gay laws, overturning or outlawing DEI initiatives in Alabama. And that's been something that's deeply affected me, the people I love, in my community. But trans and queer people are born in the South and deserve to live full lives in their home states. So I just really believe this for myself and my community. So yes, this one is currently in IRA review. So, for AC. Say yes, shimmering, the nape of your neck, shorn fuzz fruit, and swarming groves of yes. Pistols and long golden inhales. I touch us magnolia, edgeless day, edgeless epistle and sticky June, where sticky juice makes me reincarnate, as wide as tomorrow, wide as a spoon's bowl, pulling strawberry and cardamom, dipped from your waist. Your yes in my mouth, your yes in my Alabama. This field needs our hands, my hands meeting. Fold you, my love, won't the pine needles drop without us, dripping into our possible mouths. Drink this June, this Alabama. If Alabama's no, our yes. Could the earth hate its fruit, the field hate its hands? Listen, if red clay stains our nail beds, makes a field in the knees of our jeans, we're growing green. Beyond, into, camellias in horizon light, sprays of satsuma peeled from the rind, here from pith to pit, a field of yes, toward delicate and tinsel care. My love, I've gone and made tomorrow, I find you there. All right, this is my final poem. I was emotional when I did that one. Okay. This is my final poem. It's called Repair. Repair. I hear my calf braying into the indigo under half-faced moons, a slurry of sight and sound. On these nights, the calf and I stand shoulder to shoulder at the fence of the world, our sorrow weeding the pasture behind us, that soybean-sucked soil, bleached and lingering. And the barbed wire hums into the grasses. And the blue light bends around our bodies, and our fingernails are caked with fight. The world calls out to us, wet and wanting. O field, I tried to leave you and never be left. I long to lift the electric fence and free my calf from the field, our leaving a plucked string for the night choir. But for the fight of that field, I met the calf. And when I share her eyes, she sees stars. I carry her earth in my earth, find a field in every fold. My shadow bends around me like 4 new legs, stitched from a womb of nightshade and dew. And I made a home in the world. And everywhere the world loves itself in me. When I remember that field, I listen softly. And when I love that field, I sing.
Okay. That's very beautiful. Thank you so much. Kate DeLay. Well, that's very nice. That's very nice. We're having a good time tonight. Yeah, lots of poetry. I love that. So it's under some dispute whether or not I gave the first or the second reading ever in the history of Malaprops. I, of course, hold that I was the first one, but hard to say. I was 21 years old. It was 1982. I read with Olivia Bordenoli, who used to teach at UNCA for years. She was married to Jeff Rackham, who was the head of the program, and was responsible for getting me their first creative writing scholarship in 1983. And that had a lot to do with me becoming a poet, I think. Certainly had a lot to do with me becoming an editor. And so has the support of Malaprops over the years. Malaprops is one of those places that the community can congeal around. And lots of times, Imica has been on our boards from the beginning. The booksellers and the workers and the folks who frequent Malaprops have always bought and supported the Asheville Poetry Review. And that's made all the difference. So I'm going to read 2 more of the Matthews Prize winners. There are 3. There is a first prize, which Kate won this year. There's also a second prize and a third prize. And I want to read those folks' poems. They couldn't be here tonight. One of them lives in Texas, one lives in California. So that was going to be a little bit of a trek. And but I think it's only fair that we read their poetry. Jeanne Wagner is the 3rd place winner, and she's the author of 4 chapbooks, 3 full-length collections, and her latest book was called Everything Turns into Something Else. She's also the winner of the 2021 Joy Harjo Award, and her work has appeared in the Southern Review, Body, the Valparaiso Review, and countless others. This is called Penelope. I want to weave a tapestry of twigs from a nest fallen into gravity's collage of crabgrass and tree roots. I want to touch the tangled plots of yesterday's lost nativities. Fibers as resilient as those snippets of Christmas ribbon with their secret ridges I'd rip into bloom with just a flick of one shear and watch them spring into whirls. The kind you find in the fractal vanity of a tea rose, or in those shavings of pine wood that curl into cursive loops and turn into ash so they can swirl and lunge in the firelight. This could even be a metaphor about water when it cuts loose, and voila, it's the curl of a wave as it washes up to the shore. That muscular compression right before the final sprawl, before the loosening of design, which is both force and inhibition, like Penelope, who could sit all day at her loom, working through the high-strung warp, weaving a story of sated gods and their lovers. So at night, she could pull out the frazzled thread and find her own saga alive and coiling at her feet. This poem is by a very fine poet who has been published by Horizon Books, Luke Hankins, who has been with the Asheville Poetry Review since 2005, is that right? Six, started as an intern, now the senior editor, and has his own press called Horizon. One of these poets, his name is Rodney Gomez, was published by Horizon, and he's a member of the Macondo Writers Workshop, and he's the McAllen, Texas Poet Laureate. His most recent collection is Arsenal with Praise Song, which was published by Horizon, recipient of the Helen C. Smith Memorial Award for Best Book of Poetry from the Texas Institute of Letters and the Writers League of Texas, their book award. He's supported by the Academy of American Poets. He has a Poet Laureate Fellowship and the National Endowment for the Arts Creative Writing Fellowship, a Yale Fellowship, and a DeGroote Foundation grant. I think you'll see quite quickly why all of these folks are willing to support a foundation for his work. This is Rodney Gomez. It's called Tableau with Tarantella, Public Housing, and Underwood Ham. Complex of bawling children, adjacent to the mammoth strip malls tinkling, floating docks where the checkouts smoked, marionettes also. I grew up with their lungs inside me. Windowless cube. Our neighbor fenced credit card numbers out of gas station pumps. Another yelled continuously from 3 until 4 every morning. Another neighbor said I would turn pigeon one day. He was right, except for the part about turning. Duplex with shamrock green pool. The slide was new, but always attacked. So many children, I didn't know whose child I was. We lit fires in the community garden to erase our truancy. The first house was a man's house. Echoes demanded to know my motive. Children had lived there. I saw their scrawls in the closet as if writing from within the animal. They warned me about his hands and his savings account, and a car warmed next to it with Christmas wrapping, lost in the leg well under blankets, appeal letters, court orders, ratty clothes. All night, my mother sobbed. There was a week we ate only deviled ham and buttercrust bread. It always smelled like the radiator was furious. A tent on the beach. That was us until it flew. We fished on the bayside and lit fires like hairdos. In the early mornings, crabs scuttled out of the sea in pale dresses, not messengers, but mirrors. Two skeletons held together by the wire of sympathy. I would say we prayed, but the truth is a hornet. We didn't breathe. Our mouths moved. We didn't exist. Only our bones, an approximation of real movement. An urn. The other was a hole and a marker the size of a business card. A little name. One card. And breathing holds back a flood. This is a new issue. There's Uncle Walt on the cover, Walt Whitman. It's one of my favorite covers that we've done in a long time, although I have to admit we're a little bit known for our covers at this point. And that's a good thing. As a consequence, I'd like to read a Walt Whitman poem because I was having an argument the other day and Walt Whitman is our world poet, like Dante in Italy or Pushkin in Russia or Neruda in Chile or Shakespeare in Great Britain, or maybe even Robert Burns or Dylan Thomas in Wales. Every country has its poet. Walt is ours. And I want to do a Walt Whitman poem. It's been a long time since I did that. Most of you can think back to when you first saw Walt Whitman with his big beard, or you can remember is the Old Testament lines that made those beautiful poems that changed everything in our language. I'm going to sing a little bit of a song for you, if I may. And then I want to do a Walt Whitman poem. It's called I Hear America Singing. Oh, beautiful, oh, spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesty. Above the fruited plain, America, America, God shed his grace on thee. Yes, yes, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. I hear America singing the varied carols I hear, those of mechanics, each one singing his as it should be, blithe and strong. The carpenter singing his as he measures his plank or beam. The mason singing his as he makes ready for work or leaves off work. And the boatman singing to what belongs to him in his boat and his wife in her home. And the deckhand singing on the steamboat deck. And the shoemaker singing as he sits on his bench. The hatter singing as he stands. The woodcutter's song. The plowboy on his way in the morning or at noon, intermission, or at sundown. The delicious singing of the mother, of the young wife at work, of the girl sewing or washing, petting her brother, each singing what belongs to him and to her and to no one else. The day, what belongs to the day. At night, the party of young fellows, robust and friendly, and they're singing with their open mouths these strong American melodious songs. Do two more. This is we do the William Matthews Prize in honor of William Matthews, who, when I was in college, was one of the poets that most sort of gobsmacked me when I first discovered his work. His son, Sebastian, has always been a great supporter of not only my work, but the review itself. And his father was smart enough to make him the executor once he passed. And Sebastian has done a tremendous job with keeping his father's work alive. And we've tried to do that in our own way. I want to do a short poem by William Matthews. This is called Lions in the Cincinnati Zoo. Compared to their bodies, peeling in swatches like old wallpaper, their pug faces are too big and blank for some emotion that no zoo can induce. In the wild, their bloat outlopes hunger, but here they're fed exactly, cut short of the smug digestive stupors across which they drag their swag-ridden bellies to a sleep that smells like vomit, acrid, carrion soaked, stale. They sleep off as much as they can. The Cincinnati Lions' pace is clock's pace. They measure themselves again and again, and they fit. I know that there is a place now for everyone in our country, though it sometimes feels as if one half of the country is pushing against the other half in such a manner as to create a wedge that would clearly be sharpened into a way to eradicate the other half. Werner Herzog said that he believed America was in a situation now where 1/3 of the citizenry would kill 1/3 happily, while the other third made excuses for them. We don't believe that. The people in this room don't believe that. It's important for us to always continue to push back against that belief. This is called the immaculate collisions. The dogwoods have thrown out their white gowns, and spring creeps up from under them. The older bees are teaching the younger how to fish for pollen, lathing their legs and tongues with gold and dust. The sky takes the moon in its arms and lays its soft head on the sky's broad blue shoulder and carries its coo through the galaxy, gently patting the moon's calm, dark back. We are made of wandering starlight, and the water in our bodies churned from the millions of immaculate collisions as the earth, a great cosmic billiard ball, bounced violently against a vast array of comets 14 billion years ago. And even now, traveling as I read this poem, 6,000 miles an hour around the sun, we are balanced on tectonic plates that are floating on lava as we surf through the universe. I find myself praying that poetry will allow me to keep my wonder intact and my justice as the desperate daily slog from job to jury to honey jar sharpens my ricochets. Love. Love is an uncommon boomerang, and the only thread we have to stitch us tightly into what remains of our humanity. The billionaires and presidents race to launch the first forays into Mars, to mine the asteroids for their precious metals, to set up flags and camps on every moon, to fill the empty heavens with discarded satellites and ambitious debris. Our species soils each nest it encounters as we crawl through the endless west. Destiny made manifest as we stretch the unfurling borders of our rabid, restless imagination and burn down the borders we recklessly encounter. Permafrost and the chimneys funneling methane from the center of the earth have lent an irregular rhythm to our species' last extinction event. Siberian sinkholes bubble forth the bones of mastodons. And fractured awake against the future, we are conditioned to believe that our external reality is true, but does not match our internal reality. However, there is an infinite sea of potential. Our brains are lit by what we see and by what we think we see, making the process of the past just as real as the lived moment viewed by our eyes. Our brain is able to process 400 billion bits of information per second. but we are only aware of about 2,000 of those. And we spend the majority of our time eliminating the waste, disposing of the random sensory projections, and accepting the symbols and images that occur the most or serve our bodies best. Yuri Gagarin was the first man to orbit the Earth, floating as he ate and sang, dancing above the terra firma, millions of miles away. He stuck his toes over the edge of his lonely capsule door, and he stared into the infinite landscapes of magnificent desolation. Our wasted Milky Way will outlive us. The fire of the expired aurora borealis will still wink on for thousands of light years. Gagarin knew that the universe is essentially a vast pocket of emptiness, and that true wilderness will silence you, require your complete attention, and the knowledge that the land we love so much will never love us back. So that concludes our program, I do believe, on time. And I want to thank you so much for coming tonight. I want to thank you folks again who are streaming. And we appreciate you so much for being here and for taking this time to spend with us. We're going to spend a few minutes here afterwards signing books. I have a whole shelf of books back there that you can pick out one, and I'll be happy to stick my Keith Hancock on it. And Tina also has books available, and we have copies of the Asheville Poetry Review that are available. I don't see any reason why the price of admission shouldn't be to purchase a copy of APR tonight. Look at all the poetry you got for just, walking in and hanging out. Thank you so much for coming.